So this is a small bit that I do on group chats, that I've done a few times and I've worked on a little bit that I'm hoping to refine. This is the kind of material that I would release. I wanted to use this as a way to talk about process. Specifically, again, I'm working on how to go past my first and second thoughts with my material, and also how to use Jim's writing codes process to sort of generate material. So, how I'll start it sometimes, depending on the crowd, depending on the flow, I'll be like, how many group chats are you in? I'm not a crowd work kind of comic, but I will sort of seed some of it sometimes. Sometimes people will answer, sometimes people will start to giggle. Should I perform this a little bit?
I don't think so. We're talking theoretically and how to
Yeah.
flesh it out,
Okay,
but
cool, cool, cool.
just I don't know how often you want me to stop you, but by
Stop,
starting
jump
with a
in. Yeah.
question, you're kind of limiting where the jokes can come from. If you
Okay.
start things in the declarative, you've got a lot more that you can make specific. For instance, how many of you are in group chats? Well, if you start by saying, I am currently in 41 group chats, that's a laugh. I'm in a group chat for this and this and this. The list is then subject to being funny. If you're looking for a way to expand, being declarative instead of being questioning is one of the first ways that you can expand it more. What group chat, give yourself a number, that's punchline. Give yourself a list. The list is you could rifle through, you could do, I'm in family, friends, and people who want to kill the whole high school gym teacher. And that's a one punchline rule of three kind of structure. Or you can make the entire list punchline after punchline. I'm in 41 group chats. I'm in a group chat for, you know, adult survivors of the McDonald's ice cream machine ever being operable. I'm gonna,
Mhm.
and everything in the list then becomes a punchline to whatever degree you want it to be.
You guys, you're gonna watch me live not know how to spell, but we shall overcome. Say that last part again. Everything in the list.
Everything in the list can be a punchline because remember, the audience has judgments on you. So when the audience looks at you, they think you're a specific kind of person.
Mhm.
So if I went on stage and I said I'm in 41 group chats, and I come up with a list, if one of the items from my list is guys that are too damn hot, it's going to be a laugh because everyone's going to go, you shouldn't be on that list. Or, whatever the reason being, everything in that list can become a punchline just based off what you believe they're thinking about you.
Everything on the list can become a punchline based on what I believe the audience is thinking about me.
Yeah.
Okay. So one of the times I tried this bit and I did lean in with the question, how many of you are in group chats? And I really wasn't prepared or didn't have a strategy to receive answers, but someone was like, I'm in seven. And the audience went, whoa. They were like completely taken aback. And it did take me a second to get them to focus back on me. And so after that set, I stopped asking the question. I was like, "Oh, this is very, very distracting." And all I could say at the time, I was like, "All right, I tried it." I was like, "Oh, damn." Like that was my answer. I didn't have anything I could build on at the time. Um, but that totally makes sense. So
And
another,
remember,
yeah.
if you're ever stuck in the audience, is the audience is then reacting to another audience member. You can use the rules of improv to get the room back.
Hmm.
So if somebody yells, I'm in 7 group chats," and the whole audience, "Oh my god, I can't believe you're in 7 group chats." If the next words coming out of your mouth is 7 group chats, you're an amateur. I'm in 43. Then all of a
Ah,
sudden you
yes,
reclaim
and
the room. The yes and
yeah,
is
yeah.
a powerful tool.
Awesome. So how I'll start it, and something I've been told before, I'm not a great speller, but I do know how to use words really well. And that I should not use certain words because of, people might not understand them and I'll lose them. So
You must
I've,
be this tall to ride this ride.
yeah,
The audience doesn't get it because of your vocabulary. Do you really want them to be your audience?
yeah, I do not.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I always say group chats are precarious, right? And they're always one wrong meme sent to the wrong person at the wrong time. for like complete destruction. I don't think I've used for complete destruction. When I'm thinking about our previous conversation, like what's the emotion? I'm trying to describe how delicate a lot of them are, especially the more kinds of people and the more people you have in there. So maybe that's a better way to say it if I'm looking for a word that has a more emotional response.
Anything that has an emotional context to it is going to be a stronger launching point.
Okay, so instead of saying this, then if I was working on like a tiny 2, 3 minute set, so maybe it's not precarious. Maybe it's group chats are so delicate. They're always one wrong meme sent to the wrong person at the wrong time, um, from being completely dismantled, from total destruction.
Yeah, that is an approach. But so for me, looking at this structure wise, and you were talking about how do I write, bigger
Hmm.
bits? How do I expand my material? A lot of what you're doing is limiting with construction.
Hmm.
So if you start with, the declarative, I'm an X number of chat groups, then you explain them. Then your next one is group chats are so precarious. Well, now let's use comparison instead. The group chats I start are perfectly fine. They're sane, they're reasonable. Everyone needs to know about the cute cat at my bodega. But the group chats that you're starting are horrible. I don't need to know about Becky's cancer. Again, you can then use comparison to explain the list. And that comparison can then lead to more punchlines.
So this where I'm starting from, what would you call this where I'm like these starting thoughts? Is there anything like specific or
This
technical?
is for me this is kind of like the first flush, the first fleshing out of the idea, and
Hmm.
then we're looking at each of these things you're saying and saying, okay, so let's assume that what you're saying is perfectly fine and would
Hmm.
work. How do I expand it? So we're going to expand the group chats being precarious by we can then talk about your group chats being fine, everyone else is being precarious or stupid or wrong. You can then talk about, I belong to this group chat that I started. My mom started this one. My cousin started this one. My best friend started this one. And then you could have jokes about the people that you're doing just by talking about what they are. You can talk about, I'm in group chats for things that I should be in group chats for. The family group chat on what we want to do for Thanksgiving this year. That's a discussion. Let's have it. I am also in a group chat, to discuss Justin Timberlake's, the fashion choices of 1994. I
Hmm.
don't need to be in that.
Hmm.
You can then just start going into it.
Mm.
I love there's always one wrong meme sent to one wrong person at one wrong time for complete destruction. I love that line. But then I would also really love you to go by the extremes. Like your racist uncle didn't need to send a picture of the gates of Auschwitz. That was kind of wrong. But likewise, your friend knows that cats are triggering for you. So why the hell did they send that? Again, you should be covering the fact that what's triggering or what's explosive for you is not necessarily explosive for other people.
And like you have a brain, I mean, you've been doing this a gazillion years, you're like uber professional. So like you have a brain to sort of like pick up on these things much faster than I do. Cause like I would sit with this for a couple, I would sit with this for a couple days and be like, why can't I shift out of this like first first idea or like first or second iteration, especially, which is another thing I'm working on, especially if my first iteration has gotten laughs, right? But eventually it gets stale. I get stale telling it. Again, people see lots of different comics talking about group chats, so it doesn't feel as fresh, right? So one of the things I try to do is I look for either specific actions that I've actually taken and like how to make them specific to who I am. right? So like this, this is a terrible thing to do, but it is something that I've actually done, right? And I was like, this is sort of bad behavior that I think is um specific to me and also a kind of universal reaction. Um, and
Mm.
I think the emotion here is like, this is someone who takes action like this is someone who's non-confrontational.
But then again, it's also expand the iris. One of the exercises that you may remember from writing cheat code is let's explore other points of view.
That's right.
So,
Okay.
if you're going to open up your own chat room to talk about your aunt because you hate her so much, you also know your aunt has formed her own little group chat to talk about how misbehaved you are
Yeah.
and how you still don't listen after all these years.
Mhm.
You expand the points of view based on the people there. If we're talking about being, in a chat group that's 8, 10, 12 people, and each group will have its own personality. When I look at a topic like this, I'm like, if I start bringing in those other people, I start bringing in their personalities, and then I start bringing in my emotional reaction,
Mhm.
their personalities. Holy shit, is this going to roll with a lot of punchlines? Like this can be, for me, a 15-minute bit before I start paring it down just because of the
Oh,
richness in it. You know, if I come in, let's just say you legitimately counted and you saw that you were in 4 chat groups.
yeah.
Not a number that's so high that people would go, that's insane. And you look at the 4 chat groups, and one was a work chat group, one was a family chat group, one was a friend chat group, and maybe the other one is kind of a random chat group based on a hobby or something. People that are fans of X artist, whatever it is. So now you've got those 4 chat groups. You have why you joined each of them, the personality of each group, who is in each group, your relationship with each of those people in the group. And before you know it, just with 4 of them, you could have 50 punchlines without effort,
Mhm.
without batting an eye. But as long as you hold on to, I'm just going to give you my opinion on chat rooms,
Yeah.
in my opinion on group chats. Now you're incredibly limited. Now also let's talk about group chats over time. That's another thing that I encourage people to do. Another thing that we did in writing cheat codes. There's a difference between somebody sending you a group chat request in the pandemic, where I'm
Yeah.
sure we all had 8,000 group chats going, and somebody sending you a group chat request in 2024.
Mhm.
Like, group chat, are we still doing that? You know, I don't know if I want to do this right now.
Mhm.
you know so there's also over time how you've changed over time. In 2020 I welcomed it for community. In 2024 I think you need to see a professional. I think you might be lonely. I think you might need therapy. I am not your therapist.
So I think there's something that you said there about like this could easily be like a 15-minute,
Oh yeah.
right? Bit. And I think something that I know I've struggled with and I've seen other comics at my level struggle with is like we're not necessarily getting invited to do 15-minute sets, right? Like the stuff we're prepping for is the 5 minutes, the 3 minutes. I think what is it that the Kill Tony thing in Austin, it's like 1 minute is your audition joke, right? So like if I was going to take this and like, all right, so I've expanded as much as I can. One of the things I'm asking myself, it's like, okay, I have this 5 minute set. I booked this book or show. I have people coming, quote unquote, it is my audition for the club. I don't want to just do 5 minutes on this one topic. Um, that's typically not for those smaller sets, I've normally picked like 2.5 topics, but I don't want to do 5 minutes on this one topic. So how do I take this and like condense it? What are
Well,
your
at that
tips?
point, you have 2 ways of doing it. I'm going to do this section. I'm
Hmm.
just going to do the section on, so for instance, let's just say one of them was you're talking about your family Thanksgiving group chat. I'm just
Hmm.
doing a section on the family Thanksgiving group chat and ignore the rest of this. So I'm doing this section of the larger bit, or I'm going to do a highlight reel. I'm going to do about joining group chats. I'm going to do about what I do. I'm going to do about the behavior. And I'll take this one punchline of other people in group chats. So you're dancing around more, but you're also culling it. There's just because you write a piece that's 15 minutes and work structurally A to Z doesn't mean you have to do it as a 15-minute opus and perform it that way. You could choose to do highlights, you could choose to do excerpts. Both of those things are perfectly valid. What we're talking about, though, is giving you choices. Because let's just say you start this and the audience isn't as judgmental to group chats as you think it is. Now you can pivot from judging them for being in group chats to talking about the personalities in your group chat. So you've got a place to go and salvage the bit, even if the audience doesn't see eye to eye with the main thrust of your bit.
Okay. And in terms of like, and this is different from like how you teach, which I appreciate, which is like not to formula, again, as I've mentioned.
Right.
Even though sometimes though I'm like, oh, formula would just like solve all of my problems and give me feed my perfectionism and make sure that I like never bomb again. That's that's my shit. But like, so like, how would you take a longer, you've added in you've narrowed down the emotions, you have the different points of views, you're thinking about the different reactions, we're thinking about time periods. You mentioned holidays. That's something I completely forgot as well. Um, like what is a group chat in Christmas, Thanksgiving? What is a group chat for the family vacation? What is a group chat for the reunion? What is a group chat at work, right? Like all these different environments, right? And just talking to you right now.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um, um, oh shit, where is it going? Hold on, it'll come back. Oh shit. As my mother would say, I'm too young to have these sort of brain farts. But to be fair, my mother didn't grow up with social media.
That is true.
Okay, cool. So formula is where I was going. Um, so like if I wanted to, or how do you go about taking these brainstorming and putting it in the traditional setup punch tag, like setup premise punch tag model? That's probably such an annoying question for you.
No,
Okay.
but the answer is going to annoy the fuck out of you and everybody watching.
Okay.
So I think that bits are better when they're organic. Because if you're doing everything to a formula, premise, setup, premise, setup, expansion, punchline. Very traditional way of doing most punchlines. It turns each of these into singular one-liners.
Yeah.
Well, who's to say that your bit about the family group chat couldn't be more an emotional rant of the last thing I want is my Aunt Eloise having 24-hour access to me. It is now 3 a.m. and she's sending me Bible quotes. I don't need Bible quotes. Just tell me what dish you're bringing to the potluck. I don't need to know what verse and psalm that inspired the dish, and that could be more of a passionate rant. Whereas, you could talk about the initial list of threes for, I got suckered into joining my family, group chat. My mom promised me if she did, she wouldn't bug me about my relationships anymore, or ask me about my finances anymore, or come over without letting me know first. So I joined, so that's a structure of 3. Now I've used 2 different structures in the same piece. And one is more organic than the other. One is, a bit more flowing than the other. But why would I want to dance between structures and not have, like, this piece on group chats always relies on straight traditional setup punchline 4-point joke telling. Why not? Because the more formulaic that your punchlines are, and the less that you can do the bit, because the audience starts guessing the rhythm, and then they tune off. Like, okay, now you're going from the family chat group chat to you've set up the friendship group chat, then you've expanded that group chat, then the punchline to that group chat comes, and now you're doing the next one, and boom, 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 boom. The audience gets lulled into a fake sense of rhythm
Mm-hmm.
by
Mm-hmm.
using all the tools and not limiting yourself to one, and just saying this part feels like it should be more X, this part feels like it should be more Y, this part feels like it should be H, you know, and letting it come out that organic. Then what you're going to do is you're going to provide something that has different textures to it, which I hate to say it, but when you're up there, and this is a criticism of new comics.
Mm-hmm.
They see that because they're getting 5-minute spots, their world exists in 5-minute increments.
Yeah.
And so you want things to be more formulaic, more ritualistic, more set up punchline. Makes it easier.
Mm-hmm.
Because if I do it set up punchline in 5 minutes, I can cram more jokes in than if I'm going to do something that's a rant or a story or something that's non-traditional, something that's visual or non-verbal. Those
Mm-hmm.
require a commitment of time. But when you see the same person using the same structure, 5 minutes you get away with it because it's going to be somebody else coming up. They'll have a different structure right behind them. At what point does that structure get boring? 7, 10, 12? You should not create for the opportunities you have now. You should create with the vision of the opportunities you want. I want to do hour-long theater shows.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to write things that structurally work for an hour-long theater show,
Mm-hmm.
which means I need to incorporate all of these things. When you look at my stories, yes, overwhelmingly I do stories more than anything else, but my stories contain lists, my stories contain rant, my stories contain set up punchline one-liners, and they go off on tangents and they stay exactly pointed on subject sometimes. And there is no way to predict what I'm doing next. It makes the longer sets inherently more interesting. A young comic doing 5 minutes wants to structure everything like it's a pop tune. Verse, chorus, ending, boom, that's it. Whereas what you realize when you're doing a longer set, you have to structure it like a symphony or a jazz piece that has movements and repetitions, and we come back to things. It has to flow, but the flow has to be unpredictable, otherwise you bore the audience. And that's the difference between, when you specifically said, how do I make it longer? First thing you got to do is free your mind and go, structure is not our friend. Structure isn't the goal. The
Mm-hmm.
structure may feel like, it makes it easier, but it also restricts how long you can tell the bit, what punchlines you can do, where you can do the bit. Whereas if I open it up and I'm using all the elements and all these beautiful tools that are available to me, they get longer. And the great thing is, as you get older and you develop more tools, you become more confident in things. You're able to add more things to it. So you're able to go back and go, 5 years ago, I wasn't really in touch with my anger. I couldn't really do good rant stuff.
Yeah.
But now that I am, I could throw some decent rants in here. And that's another tool in the arsenal. So when you're going back and rewriting your older material, it gets updated in a beautiful way. It's our need to hold on to structure that limits our ability to write longer.
Okay. That was really, really helpful. And I think um another structural piece that I think people hold on to in terms of comedy is the surprise, right? And I think also sometimes something I'm learning about my process is that or my process now is that I have been writing for the opportunity I have now, not the opportunities I want later, right? Like I'm lucky that I can generate a lot of it. So in that older story or the story that I told about, like someone was like, I want you to do 15, can you do this amount? And I was able to, that's great. But just in terms of like my subject material, I am limiting myself to a current structure, I think, too soon. So I'm not seeing the opportunities. And another one of them that's huge in like comedy spaces is like the surprise, because the surprise is supposed to fundamentally trigger the laughter, right? So sometimes what I will do is force myself too soon to find the surprise before I've explored the topic.
And sometimes the surprise is the worst thing in the world for a bit. I have the bit about visiting my friend and his wife giving me a tray
I
of
love
pot
that bit.
brownies,
Yeah, yeah,
and I wind up munching them on the way home. The second I say she hands me a tray of warm, moist brownies, everyone in the audience knows they're pot brownies.
yeah.
Everyone knows. The only person that doesn't know is the dumbass narrator who's telling the story. So
Ah, okay.
when I say 10 minutes later, my friend calls me and he says, Jim, have you had any of the brownies? And I giggle, which lets them know that I'm high. It's the relief of paying off. Oh, yeah, it was pot brownies. And they laugh at it like, sucker, you knew that. Should have known that, dude. How did you not know that? The audience sometimes laughs because they feel something unexpected, surprise.
Hmm.
And sometimes they laugh because they're relieved that their instincts were correct. It's
Hmm.
acknowledgement. They laugh at both extremes. It's up to you as the artist to choose which of those extremes they need to be met with.
So what you're saying is the formula is not going to save me. No.
Formula doesn't save anybody. But here's the thing.
Hmm.
You have to develop the tools. You have to know what these formulas are.
Yeah.
You have to know how to write a rant. What's a rant? A rant is an emotionally opinion fueled diatribe on a subject. That is what a rant is.
Hmm.
It's done quickly, it's done passionately. And once you know the rules of what a rant is, then you're going, okay, I'm going to write a rant about Donald Trump. Well, how's
Hmm.
that funny? Everyone has an opinion. Hate him or love him. I hope you hate him. Hate him or love him. You have an opinion on him. So that does nothing. But if I write a rant about how I think, oatmeal raisin cookies are the spawn of the devil, that is literally the worst cookie. You're trying to feed me oatmeal while giving me a cookie. You are a hateful human being. You have ruined dessert. And I start the rant with that in mind. Now I've used a structure that and I'm passionate about something that really should not be passionately fueled. And then the structure works for me as opposed to works against me.
So if I'm, I want to take it back to this line, right?
Uh-huh.
So there always one wrong meme sent to the wrong person at the wrong time away from complete destruction. So that in of itself is like, I would say that's like a setup sort of premise, right? And
It's
so
a
I
funny
have the,
setup, but it's a setup. Yeah.
yeah, it's a what setup?
It's a funny setup. That
Yeah,
should get a laugh, even though it's setting up a
even though
bigger
it's
one.
setting it up. And so if I'm working on this, I'm going, okay, so I have the notes here, but just for the purposes of this like video, like a quick sort of like completion of it, um, I might start to be like, okay, so what was the wrong meme? What was the wrong person? Like what was the wrong time, right? Um, and like and as I'm talking to you about it, I can't believe I didn't do this on my own, but this is this is what teaching and revelations are for, yeah? And practice.
So your setup is there's always one wrong meme sent to the wrong person,
Hmm.
wrong time, away from complete destruction. So that means you should be able to have jokes about the meme. You should be able to have jokes about the person,
Hmm.
jokes about the time. The
Yes.
fourth thing is you should also be able to have jokes about yourself and jokes about this process. You know, you know, your jokes about yourself could come from, and I'm just not aware enough to know or
Hmm.
read the signs. You know, how was I supposed to know that, you know, how was I supposed to know that she spent her honeymoon on that island?
Hmm.
Just the beach. I just said the beach meme, and all of a sudden she's reminded about a divorce. That's joking about how disconnected you are from it. It's also a joke about what the person reacted to. You sent a beach photo, they got in a tizzy because of their divorce. You could also talk about, you know, total judgment of yourself. You're always one wrong meme sent to the wrong person at the wrong time, away from complete destruction. And I don't care. If you are triggered by this photo of a cat, I didn't need you on the group chat. If you are
Mm-hmm.
triggered by this, you know, if I'm sending you a steak and you are going to go off on a vegetarian tirade, I don't need to be in this group chat with you. There are so many ways that you can approach this that turn this what seems like a simple I'm setting up one punchline into you could set up nearly 50 of them.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
because you could then go into lists. You're always one wrong meme to the wrong person at the wrong time, away from complete destruction. Do you know what memes have caused people to lose their shit on me? I sent the poop emoji one time, and somebody lost their shit. It's smiling. Why are you upset? It's smiling. I sent a kitten. I had no idea your pet died earlier that week. I sent a steak. Somebody said they were hungry. I sent a meme of a steak. I had no idea they were a vegetarian. You could just go into a list of what the wrong memes were. You could
Yeah.
go into a list of who the wrong people are. There's always those people on your list, on your group chat, that everything will offend them. Yeah, or my aunt is one of those wrong people. If she is on the group chat, it doesn't matter what meme
Yeah.
it is going to be the wrong meme. You
Yeah.
know, your best friend in high school, yeah, they found religion. They turned into an asshole. They are now the wrong person for you to send any memes to.
Yeah.
You know,
I tend to go super dark. So I think I was hesitating because I was thinking like miscarriage, suicide. But you're like,
ah,
actually it can be much lighter than that, Isabel.
yeah, but there's no law that says you have to be.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know, in the wrong time, the wrong time is also good because it's double entendre.
Hmm.
At the wrong time. All right, so I had no idea you were going through a divorce. I wouldn't have sent the happy couple meme. I had no idea that you lost your pet. I wouldn't have sent the photo of the kitten.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then you could also go, do you know what the wrong time is? 2 a.m. If my phone beeps at 2 a.m., I don't
Mm.
give a fuck what the meme is. You're an asshole. You can play on the meaning of the words too. There's wordplay that you got in there. You left your. It's a matter of just keep opening doors and picking which of these punchlines strike you with enough passion that you want to try.
I Go
I've
ahead.
had students tell me that this kind of process can be overwhelming. That there's so many choices. How do you know what to do?
Hmm.
Keep going until you're tired of writing on the subject. Then you move on to the next subject. Come back to it in a couple of days, look at what you wrote, cull down to your favorite stuff, and try that on stage. There's, yeah, try and write 100 punchlines. But if you only wind up testing 4 or 5 of them, it's not like you lost. You wrote 100 of them to get the best 4 or 5. That's what you did. This process should be about making sure that everything that's in your head gets onto a page so you can make an honest assessment of whether or not that belongs on stage.
And I think too, when the writing cheat codes, a lot of them talk about um writing for an hour. And I think when I first started doing them, I was like, how am I going to do this for a whole hour? Um, and the way that my brain works and the way that this session is helping me see how I can sort of expand stuff is not formulaic, but really taking the time as like a checklist of sorts. And checklists help me, right? They don't help everyone, but they do help me of like, okay, like what are the what am I pointing to here naturally? All right, how can I separate that? Like, where is there a double entendre? Where is there wordplay? Where is the judgment, either mine? Where might I think the audience judgments are? Where's their rant? Do I emotionally connect with this? So I think these are questions I can start to ask myself as and
Yep.
so that I can naturally sort of plug in. And because I talk about dark stuff. I talk about miscarriages. I talk about sexual assault. I talk about racism. Like how can I put some of that into the material, and also where can I lighten it up for balance, right? Um like how can I do that? And like in this, I'm creating a process via a checklist so that as I am brainstorming and making these connections, I can start to like play with areas. And for me, this is great because this bit was like really boring me. This, like, I was over it, but now I see it's because I hadn't actually done like the deep work that I could have. Um, with this particular topic. And there are some topics that I'm naturally more passionate about, and like this deep work comes a little bit more naturally anyway.
Yeah. The deep work is where you find, the best jokes.
Hmm.
And I don't ever tell it. I don't think you should ever shy away from things that are dark or things that are emotional or things that are not, you know, the norm.
Hmm.
Uh,
Hmm.
there's a bit that I've done on stage. I haven't done it recently because it's just not where I am as a person right now. But I talk about back when I was dating, I met this one woman, and during sex, she wanted me to hit her. And I'm there like a playful spank, and she's like, no, like hit me, like slap me hard, hit me hard. You can ball up your fist. And I'm there like, no, that is the least sexy thing I can ever think of. And then she said, well, is it okay if I hit you? Oh, no, I thought of something less sexy. All right, now we've raised the bar. And she goes, but it's okay because I love you. And if I want to be with a woman who says I love you, then hits me, I'd go visit my grandma. I don't need this. And when I would do that bit on stage, people would go, that is so dark, but
Hmm.
all the elements of it were true. All the elements of it were the honest emotion. What I did was I stripped it down to the emotion. It went from being love. I'm a dude. I love having sex. I'm in the middle of the thing I enjoy most,
Hmm.
and you fucking ruined it. And then when I thought it couldn't get worse, you made it worse. And by focusing on that, which you could only do by pointing to the dark elements, that's what made it funny.
Hmm.
Comics so much are going to go, what's the audience going to think about me if I say that? You know what they're going to think about me? They're going to think that I don't like being hit during sex. I've got a really shitty girlfriend, and my grandmother's a piece of shit. That's what they're going to think. And you know what? All of those things are true. So what? Speak your truth on stage. And if your
Hmm.
truth is dark, let it be dark.
Hmm. Okay. I think this is a good place to end our lesson today. I didn't have a more elegant way of ending. And I
That
think
works. Hopefully, we gave people a lot to think about.
I think a lot to think about and a lot that they can work on themselves. I like that, like, you never, because I've been studying with you for a long time, and you're like, I'm not gonna like give you the answer, but I'll like bumper car you a little.
I'll point you in the direction, but you got to walk over there.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. And I like that, instead of like, and I've seen you do that with other comics as well, like in person, like you're not necessarily gonna like, hey, try this line or something like that. Because as you mentioned, like it's about the person delivering it, the character delivering it. So like your version of this line might not work for them. Um, but I do appreciate being sort of pointed in the right direction because it's forcing me to carve out my own system. Um,
And that'll let you do this for the rest of your life. And stand-ups don't retire. But Bob Hope did a gig like 3 months before he died.
mm,
And he was, deep in his 90s. We kind of don't retire. That's not what we do.
mhm.
I remember working with Larry Storch when he was in his 80s. And I'm there like, don't you want to go to Florida and be on the beach? And he's there like, no, I want to go on stage, be in front of an audience. You know, if you want that, you need to be able to keep producing new material. You need to stay relevant.
Yeah, I'm gonna kill at millennial old homes. Like I think gonna be Isabel and she's like 65, 65, 70s, 80s, like fucking killing in those places. You know what I mean?
Uh,
I'm really looking forward to it.
I cannot tell you how many times when I will do an older venue, like usually they're 55 and over communities, and I perform with them. Yeah, man, those people have disposable incomes. There's usually a barbecue or a dinner. You get fed, you get paid. If I were single, I'd be getting laid. It would be amazing.
You also have a course where you teach 30 days to a new hour.
30 days to a new hour. And basically, it started on a bet. Somebody said, I need a new hour. I'm going to be working for the next year to get a new hour. And you only need to do it for a month. You can write a new hour in a month.
Yeah.
And just the eye roll was epic. But if you write diligently and you invest the time and you do it correctly, you can come up with 2 new minutes of material a day for 30 days.
Mhm.
That's an hour.
That's an hour. Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
and so this kind of forces you to do the work to focus on these things.
Hmm.
Yeah. That's
Um,
a video online course. And there's another one launching, which is also a video online stand-up storytelling course. There's
oh,
a lot of people that they're like, how do you tell stories on stage and still get the amount of laughs you need to get? So, and that one's a bit more technical and a bit more structural.
okay. That's super dope. Again, I'll put in the description all the ways you can find Jim, all the ways you can connect with me, all of the offerings. Um, yeah. Thank you so much. This is so awesome. It's really, really helpful. Um, and I will let you know the next time I'm working on a group chat bit and I'll send you the link to see how it goes. I also think picking a topic that I'm not super passionate about, right? I think also helps me sort of step back and be a little bit more objective about this bird's eye view. Um,
And let you be a little more open to the
yeah,
possibility that
yeah.
maybe it's a different way to approach it.
Yeah. And something I also love about 30 Days to a New Hour, like the diversity of comics that you mentioned.
Yeah.
There are female comics I hadn't heard of before. There are all these different types of folks. So, in the course, Jim has this watch daily videos of comics working on specific things, and it wasn't just all the greats. So, because I think sometimes just watching the greats is like a false perception of like how
Yeah.
you should be moving and progressing. And these comics are great, but they're not sort of like the Wanda Sykes, the Chris Rocks, the
They're not the household.
Chappelles, etc. The Rita Rutners, who I remember watching her stand up and being like, she's a heavy one-liner comic, and I was like, I want to learn how to do that. Um, anyway, so it's a great it runs the gamut.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and people should deconstruct as much comedy as they can. You can
yeah.
learn so much by watching somebody and go, how did they do that?
Hmm.
What tools did they use? And how can I apply those tools to what I'm doing?
Yeah. And I also really like the don't tell specials. That's sort of a marker for me of some place that I'd like to get to. But I think they're pretty good at like a wide range um of comics and seeing, I don't like everyone's specials, you don't have to, but seeing the way people handle material, I
Yep.
think is interesting, and they're more bite size. So I'll use that and sort of analyze that. And those are a lot of like mid-career comics too. I think do
Yeah.
those particular specials. So it's interesting to sort of see how they work versus how some of the quote unquote pros work. Um, yeah, that's all I have for today. Do you have any last words, Jim?
Just everyone keep writing. Write every day. You get better if you write every day.
Awesome, awesome, awesome. I also teach a crowdfunding workshop. I'm going to be posting a link to a workshop that I have that I taught for people who wanted to fund their own specials. So that'll also be in the description. And so awesome. Thank you so much for your time today, Jim. And I'm looking forward to doing it again.
We will do it again. See you
Okay.
soon.
See you soon. Bye.